This is the Biz Call.
Question 1. What's your name?
John J. Murphy.
Question 2. What's the name of your business?
VentureManagement Consultants Incorporated.
Question 3. Describe your business in 1 or 2 or 3 sentences.
I lead transformational culture change, pulling people together for higher performance teamwork.
Okay. Question 4. What's your revenue model?
Well, for 33 years, I've used the model of very positive networking, word of mouth. I've hardly ever made a sales call, so I commit to doing a fantastic job. I commit to excellence. And I worked at the executive C-suite level so that executives often change companies, and when they do, they bring me in to pull their team together and build a much healthier culture. So
okay,
my revenue has continued to grow. I work on retainer typically, so
that's what we're getting to. Is it fee-based, performance-based?
It's fee-based, and I work on a per diem, and depending on how many days per month a client commits to, it's a sliding scale, so they get a break if they book, let's just say 5 days a month or 10 days a month versus 1 or 2.
Okay. Question 5. Are you brick and mortar, online, or both?
I'm online, but I don't work in my office with clients. I have an office, a brick and mortar office, which is where I write. I've written 20 books, so I write and do a lot of research and preparation work for my office. But I go to the client and work in the client's offices and manufacturing facilities and retail stores, things like that. So I go to the client and work very hands-on. Of course, with the pandemic, that's changed. And so in the last 18 months, I've had to do a lot more virtually with like Zoom, Zoom training, Zoom meetings. But really, it's best when I work with clients face-to-face, especially when I'm running what are called Kaizen events, rapid improvement events.
Okay, and this is all over the country?
Yeah, all over the world. I've worked in Argentina, Brazil, China, all over Europe, all over the States. Yeah, Canada, Mexico, yep.
Terrific. Okay, question 6, which is my favorite. How did you decide to get into this business?
I love that question too, Rob. I graduated from the University of Notre Dame with a degree in finance. I started in Chicago and I did a couple of years in finance and just didn't feel it, and so I made a transition into human resources and moved to my hometown of Grand Rapids, Michigan, worked in manufacturing, automotive supply manufacturing for about 4 or 5 years and went through a major culture change there. And so I left in 1988 to bring to other companies what I had learned hands-on. A lot of it came from my experience playing football up through Notre Dame. And I discovered when I went into the business world just how dysfunctional a lot of organizations are. There's, the right hand not knowing what the left hand is doing. So I brought a lot of teamwork into the culture that I worked in, the company I worked in Michigan, and left in 1988 to bring that to more companies. And it was almost like a calling. I really felt like I was being called to do this work. So I listened to my intuition. I incorporated a business in 1988, and it just started to spread. And that led me into writing. And my first book, called Pulling Together, The Power of Teamwork, took off and then ended up becoming a national workshop. And so it just started to feed on itself.
Cool. Question 7. Why would customers choose you over your competition?
That's another question I love because I'm often competing against the biggest consulting firms in the world. And they bring me in. In fact, I've had some of the biggest consulting firms in the world come to my workshops to see just how I do what I do. So it's very participative. It's very hands-on. I don't sell people fish, so to speak. I teach them how to fish. It's an old consulting saying. And we get very rapid, measurable results. And so word gets out that, this guy is a change agent, and you got to come watch him do his stuff.
So what I'm hearing there is rather than just, doing a lot of drive-by consultants do, they kind of throw the report out and leave, you pretty much can stand on these tangible results.
Well, exactly, and I've been there. I've been a corporate director. I've been a corporate executive. I've been an entrepreneur my whole life. And so unlike, a lot of consulting firms come in with a lot of very intelligent MBA young folks that do wonderful research and data collection and analysis, but they haven't run a business before. They haven't built businesses. They haven't been at the executive or corporate level leading change against a lot of resistance. So I bring very personal experience to every assignment I have, and it matters. It boosts credibility. So even though I don't have a big consulting name, like a McKinsey or Accenture or Boston Consulting Group, some of these, I do have a reputation as a best-selling, award-winning author, and so a lot of times I get work through books that executives have read. But I'm chosen not because I'm cheaper, but because the quality of my work brings a result sooner.
Good. Question 8. If you have one, what's your exit strategy or long-term goal for the business?
Well, some of my role models back in the day were people like Peter Drucker and W. Edwards Deming, who worked into their 90s, basically. And I love what I do. I love teaching and leading workshops and seminars. I love writing. So honestly, I intend to keep doing that just as long as I can.
Fair enough. Question 10. How do you measure your marketing success?
Well, I think we missed question number 9. You want to go to 9?
Okay. My bad.
Okay.
What are you doing to increase your business? And then we'll talk about how you measure the marketing success. So what are you doing to increase your business?
Well, just to stay visible. So during, COVID, for example, I've written more articles for different publications than I ever have. Articles on dealing with stress and dealing with the whole virtual shift, the transformations that's taking place around the world right in front of us. And so I stay visible through publishing new books, through publishing articles, through social media, those types of things, and just contact with, I'm still in close communication with, I refer to them as students. Some of them are now CEOs, but people I've trained for the last 30 years who are in all different countries who are bringing about very positive change from what they learned from me. So I stay connected with those people.
Good. Okay, so question 10 now. How do you measure your marketing success? Do you have some sort of a yardstick?
Mine's rather simple, Rob, and it's just how often does the phone ring, or how often do I get an email saying, hey, would you write up a statement of work for us on such and such? We're in need of your help. I also measure it by the number of books I sell, the number of hits on various articles I write, feedback like that. So I know I'm reaching the market when the phone rings, or when I get feedback that says, I read something you wrote and I'd love to talk to you about it.
Cool. Okay. Question 11, it can be yes or no. Are you profitable?
I'm going to say yes and no, and I'll explain that. My corporation is a C-Corp, and so what I do, and I'll answer number 12 too, how many employees do you have? I'm the only full-time employee. I work on a virtual model, bringing in top experts as needed, but I keep the model very lean. I don't have a big overhead, a big staff. So back to question 11, am I profitable? I am, but I shift all of that money to my personal, for tax purposes, I shift it to myself, because as a C Corp, professional organization, I'm in the highest tax bracket.
Okay, so you know what? Since you brought it up, let's do a 12A, just because I'm sure the listeners would be interested. Why did you choose a C Corp as opposed to, say, an S Corp or an LLC?
Yeah, well, back in 1988, I started it with two other guys. They both lasted less than a year. They just decided this is rough. I need to go back and they were corporate executives, and the business consulting and entrepreneurship just wasn't for them. So I bought them out and just kept it a C Corp.
Okay. The next two sides of the same coin. Question 13. What's been the best decision you've made so far?
I'd start by saying starting my company, because it's been 33 amazing years, reaching tens of thousands of people around the world. And also writing. I never intended to be a book writer back in the day, but now with 20 books published and some award-winning books, it's opened up so many doors for me and a lot of speaking engagements and things like that. So, in terms of my best professional decisions, it's starting my company and sticking with it. Like I said, my two partners originally bailed. Sticking with it, and then evolving into writing as a complement to the consulting work.
Okay, then question 14, the darker twin. What's been the worst decision that you've made so far?
I'd say I haven't done enough publicity type work. Now, I've hired some high-end publicists for some of the books I've wrote. I spent a lot of money on publicity. I've been on hundreds and hundreds of radio and TV shows and syndicated columns in the United States. But looking back, there's probably a lot more I could have done to market my brand, or to brand myself earlier. For close to 30 years, my brand was my business name, VentureManagement Consultants. And just 3 or 4 years ago, I was advised, you need to brand yourself. So I started a personal web page, which I never had before, and I started to brand myself, and that's paid off well.
Okay. So that brings us to question 15. Is there anything that we haven't covered that you'd like to add? You can totally get on the soapbox and freeball it in case we missed something that you think our listeners would like to hear.
Yeah, I think, and it's especially important these days, Rob, that one of the best things for any leader to consider is the importance of pivoting, of adaptability, improvising. So, okay, plan A doesn't work. What's plan B or C? We have to remember we have options. So I've run into a lot of, let's say, brick walls over the years, and I've had to improvise. I've had to pivot. Instead of just putting my head down and plowing through like a bull, I've just stepped back and really think about what's a better way to handle this, what's a better way to do this. So I think it's absolutely critical these days that we learn to pivot quickly, that we're more agile in the way we approach our work and our life, so that we just don't get stuck. There's always options. And one of the things one of my mentors taught me over 30 years ago is he used to say to me, John, don't come to me with a problem without blank. A lot of people would fill that blank in with a solution. That's a very common paradigm. But he wouldn't say that. He'd say, don't come to me with a problem without at least 3 solutions. And it really helped me get out of my own way, so to speak, get outside the box. Because I'd be thinking, I got the perfect solution here, option A, and now I have to think of option B, and then I have to think of option C, and guess which one we usually went with? It was option D. It was some hybrid, some combination of the different ideas. And that practice is what I've brought to my clients over the years. Let's look for option D. And first people look at you like, what are you talking about? We don't even have A or B yet. But by teaching creative problem solving and deep root cause analysis and systems thinking, things like that, we've come up with solutions, we being myself with my clients, that are just mind-blowing.
Yeah, I think that's an incredibly profound observation, and I hope that our listeners have their ears on. That is so important because, as I'm pretty sure you'll agree, sometimes you go in expecting Plan A, and you're disappointed that it doesn't work, but Plan D actually ends up yielding better results than Plan A ever did.
Oh yeah, by far, that's been my experience. And I often say this to clients, it doesn't do a lot of good in the long run to solve problems inside a box when it's the box that's the problem. What I find is, the box is a paradigm. It's a belief system. It's a model. And when we're inside that model, benchmarking even others inside that model, not realizing that the whole paradigm is flawed. It's just, it doesn't apply anywhere. Like I often say, who wants a Six Sigma perfect floppy disk? Nobody these days. So even when we think we're, and by the way, that's affected companies like Motorola, and General Electric, Texas Instruments, Raytheon, some of the great companies, and I've worked with a lot of them. You get so fixated on getting it right and getting it perfect, because I teach Six Sigma and Lean Six Sigma, getting it so right, not realizing that there's innovations possibly that blow everything out of the water. And I use this example in some of my workshops. Imagine wanting to watch a movie on television 15 years ago that's not on television. What do? Well, you have to get off the couch. You got to go to the store. You got to rent a video. You got to stand in line. You got to pay for it. You got to travel back. You got to load the machine. You sit on the couch and you click play. All of those steps are non-value added. They were necessary back in the day, but now you can click on a movie without leaving your couch, with all kinds of new solutions. Whether it's on demand or Netflix or whatever you prefer, it's lean. That's what lean is. It's eliminating all of those non-value added steps. So what I do with companies is we'll map out a process, literally map it out on the wall, like go to the store, stand in line, pay for the videotape, map it all out, and then we'll look at, what's really important here, and how can we take all of the waste out of the equation. That's essentially what lean is all about, removing waste or non-value added. And so by doing that, we take 100-step processes that involve 8 people, and we find ways to do it in 10 steps with 2 people, freeing up all kinds of capacity for more important work. And these days, that's critical because a lot of companies are really struggling to get people to come to work, and they need to free up capacity.
Right. This is great stuff, John. Terrific stuff. I'm going to ask you to do one last thing, and that is repeat the name of the business slowly and clearly, the URL, not just where they can find you, but also where they can find your books. Go ahead.
Sure. My company name is VentureManagement Consultants Incorporated. My tagline back in the day was nothing ventured, nothing gained. So VentureManagement Consultants Incorporated. And I have a VentureManagementConsultants.com website, but I would direct people more to my JohnMurphy.org website, which is more interactive and lists all of my books. And it also has links to I have a YouTube channel with over 200 quick self-help type videos on it. I have a LinkedIn profile, a Facebook profile, a Twitter profile. All of that is accessible through my JohnJMurphy.org website.
If you'd like to plug your business on the BizCall podcast, simply visit thebizcall.com and fill out the form. If you become a guest, you'll receive a free lifetime membership to the BizCall discussion and networking list. If you're too shy, you can still join the BizCall list at thebizcall.com.